Welcome back to school, guys. So we're back in the same classroom. We've made a bunch of my videos. But anyways, as you saw, let's go into how to get the interview and crush it. So I've actually taken some notes because I haven't done an interview in like 3 years for a job. So when I did it, I did actually crush it. So I will share what I know along with like what I saw online and get you kind of prepped. So like you've already applied, you know how to apply, you know what to do with the CVs and finding them online, and now you're ready for the interview. So now we're going to talk specifically about the interview, look at some questions and how you want to answer them, because you know, depending on where you're applying, it can be pretty competitive. So it'll help you if you know what you're doing to try to be a little bit out of the box, a little bit beyond what everybody else is doing. So basically I have a whole list of questions and then we'll go over some tips. So we'll start at the beginning and work our way through what a traditional interview would be like. So the first question that most likely ask is like, tell me about yourself. So of course, like here's where you wanna like try not to be as boring as possible if you're like a normal person, but try to like make yourself somehow stand out. Talk about, you know, you don't need your whole life story unless it's interesting, which I happen to be fortunate enough being born in Yugoslavia, and you know the story. So for me, it happens to be a really good like starting point where people are like, oh, this is interesting. Anyways, when they ask you, tell me about yourself, like, yeah, tell them what's up, where are you from, maybe what did you study, and stuff like that. But like, don't get too specific into teaching yet. You just wanna get them to know more about you. That's it, you know, basically what kind of person are you, you know. The second question, this is just a list I found, so they might be different, but it's like, why do you want to be a teacher? So of course here, don't just be like, oh, I want to make hella cash and party while I'm abroad. Like you gotta have some kind of like reason, like, you know, helping like spread English across the world, like giving young children in underdeveloped countries an opportunity to have like a better foundation, to have a better life in the future because of English and something like that, you know. I mean, I'm hoping that you're applying because you want to help people, and that's the main gist. Just don't go out there and be like, I just want to make hella cash and piss it away every month, you know. Try to have very like positive kind of message there. The next one would be like, what's the best way to teach English? So this is a question that they actually asked me, you know. So like, you know, some people would be like, oh, well, it's best to play games with the kids. You just want to have fun, and then they'll slowly pick it up. But then it depends on like what kind of position are you applying for. Are you applying for a job to teach children or adults? Because then you're gonna have different answers. Like I applied to teach children, so I said like, you gotta play and make them laugh and have fun, and don't just be focused on the teaching the whole time. That's my methodology of teaching, is like, I want to have fun, and I want you guys to like, you know, give you a lot of anecdotes about my life, and then they can relate to it somehow, and then we're gonna learn English through this kind of mutual like discussion-based learning. And we're gonna have fun doing it. With the little kids, I'm gonna make them laugh and stuff, and we're gonna have a good time, you know. But other teachers might be like, well, it's all about like sticking to your guns and like following the methodology precisely and making sure the kids are learning something. So whatever it is, but make sure you're ready to answer that. Like I said, and I didn't say, but you don't wanna be there and be like, I don't know, I didn't think about that, you know. So if you haven't ever taught before, look at example answers online, you know, about what other people have said, and kind of get an idea of what you wanna expect. The next one would be like, what's a challenge you faced in the classroom? So this one will be for people who have already taught. If you haven't taught, they probably won't ask you this, but they might ask you like, how would you deal with a problem student? Like a kid who's rowdy and keeps yelling and stuff, like what would you do? So again, you gotta have a kind of idea of like how to do student discipline. I use a 3-strike method, it's pretty traditional, but it seems to work. I give you 1 X, 2 X's, 3 X's, and you go out. If you keep being disruptive, I'll call your parents. Yeah, usually, rarely will it come to that. Usually you give them a few strikes and they're like, okay, never mind. You know, if you give them some kind of reward at the end of class, like our school has like these fake dollars we give them, I'll be like, oh, you don't get dollars today because you were being a jerk. And the kid's like, oh, never mind, you know. Separate them from other kids, kick them out of class, call their parents, you know, and just don't say anything stupid like, yeah, you gotta beat your kids. Like, no, don't do that. Just find some kind of reasonable answer of like what you do with disruptive students. The school just wants to know that like you're thinking about that. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want to be there and be like, I don't know. Again, you know, you don't want to be caught off guard. What are some successful teaching methods you use? So again, this is, if you've taught before, you can talk about what did work. If not, think about like the training you did, the TEFL training you did, and see what was successful there. Like I said, for me, it's been successful to make the students laugh and have a good time. It keeps them coming back and it keeps them learning something. So that's always my most successful method, is like just to have a good time with the young kids, to play games with them. With the older kids, it's about having discussions and relating to their personal lives. And then once you connect with them on a personal level, they're more likely to listen and absorb what you're actually saying instead of it just going in one ear and out the other. Just my methodology. It's different for everybody. Look it up, find out what works for you, and then you go with that. Again, don't get caught off guard. And here, how would you handle a problem student? So that's similar to like the challenge you faced. So again, that's a question that like I said, they fall in the same ballpark. Just be prepared to answer it. And they might actually ask you like questions like that, like kind of redundant. So make sure you're not caught off guard and like be like, oh, okay, like, yeah, it's similar to the answer I've given you before. Like I would give him the 3 strikes and kick him out. That's what I would do with a problem student, and call his parents or her parents if need be. So here, how do you make sure your students understand you? That's something that new teachers have no idea of. They're just gonna be like, do you understand? And the kid's like, yes. But how do you know that they understand, right? So that's a question that's gonna come up, and this is one of the basics of like training, and they call them CCQs. You wanna ask CCQs, which is concept check questions. So for example, if you read a story and, you know, they're talking about like, you know, he's eating a sandwich, a ham sandwich, you'll be like, oh, was he eating a fish sandwich? And the student should be like, no, he was eating a ham sandwich. Oh, he was eating a pizza. No, he was eating a sandwich. Or, you know, something like that. You know, if you're learning about sushi, that was the example they gave on their website. Like, are you reading about sushi? They're like, oh, there's chicken in sushi. No, there's not. So you're asking a bunch of like very simple yes/no questions just to make sure they're understanding like the concept that you're learning. Never ask them, do you understand? And if you want to sound like really great, tell them that. Like, an English teacher should never ask, do you understand? Unless they're like older, teenagers or adults, they would literally be able to tell you like, no, I don't understand this part. But young kids don't get it. So you got to find more interesting ways to, you know, like, oh, the bear was sad. No, teacher, no, the dog was sad. The bear is hungry. And you're like, oh, right, of course. You know, kind of dummy yourself down. The kids would like to like show you up. So it's great. Concept check, CCQs, remember those for the interview. What are your qualifications? This is where you're gonna like lay out everything you need. You know, like, oh, I have a TEFL, I have a university degree, I have a teaching certificate if you have one, and whatever, like lay them out, show them what it is, you know. It's very straightforward. That's probably one of the first questions you'd be asked, but yeah. And then why do you think the kids need to learn English? And that's something you'll get a lot. They'll be like, well, why do you want to come here and teach these random kids English? You know, and again, that goes back to why do you want to be a teacher? For me, I think it's about like these kids learning English. It's gonna, like in Vietnam, like learning English puts you like way above other people in terms of skills, and that's a very marketable skill. Vietnam is becoming like globalized, so either you're speaking like Russian, Chinese, or English, you know, and if you're opting for English, you know, you can trade with America, England, and the rest of the world. And it's also the world's second language. I always tell my students, and I tell them during the interview, like, if a Vietnamese kid's going to Japan, are they going to speak Vietnamese with them? No. Are they going to speak Japanese? No. They're probably going to speak English as a mutual language. You know, that's just how it was. When I was in Taiwan, we'd meet Koreans and we would speak English to each other because it's just the world's second language. So not only is it useful for their job, but it's also useful in general for them to be able to communicate. Kids are watching online videos. Oftentimes that's in English. They watch movies. Why not be able to understand them? So like it just like ripples through the entire like society. So for me, English is like vital for anybody on earth. If you can afford to learn it, you should. It's my theory. The last one is, have you lived in another country before? They'd be asking you that for sure, you know, because I ran into a girl in Taiwan who was her first time abroad, and she couldn't go a day without having to Skype with her family. And she made it work, but then she did go home and she was kind of done with that. But like, it's something you need to like, that they're gonna look out for, and something you should try to test yourself with. Try to travel, live away from your family. If you're in college, try to live away from them. See how you can handle that. Because if you need to be close to your family, maybe this isn't the best gig for you, because you're gonna be like 10,000 miles away on the other side of the planet. So you need to like realize, like, you know, you're not gonna be able to talk to them. You're definitely not gonna be able to see them. And if you're having to Skype with them every day or every other day, like, I don't know. Like, I talk to my parents once a week minimum, and sometimes like twice a week, but that's about it, you know, and just quick messages on Facebook, and that's that. But make sure you're comfortable to do that, and make sure you're ready to explain that. Like for me, it was easy for me because I was like, oh, I studied abroad in Italy for a year, but while I was in university. But do you have something that have you lived abroad? It just makes you more hireable. And after the first job, just like any other job, that you can roll that stuff, into your resume, and you can just like kill it in the future, start demanding more money and whatnot. Anyways, but we'll talk about negotiations in the future video. So here's some tips I found online, kind of came up with my own. So first tip is research the schools that you're applying for and look at like the Glassdoor reviews. See what people are saying, and then you can ask them questions. You always look great if you're asking them questions very specifically about either the country or the company. Be like, oh, well, I saw some bad reviews about your work hours not being fair. Like, what do you have to say about that? And like kind of grill them, because remember, like not only do you want to work for them, but they want you to work for them. So like you both need to be like hireable to each other. Do you know what I'm saying? Like just ask them questions. It always looks good. You don't want to be like, no, I got everything. So research the company, research the position, find out what other people are saying, read about the descriptions, read about other descriptions, and kind of get an idea and come up with some questions. Here's a good one. Tell me about what you do, not what you've studied. So when you first start, of course, you're gonna have to be like, well, I don't know, but this is what I learned in my TEFL. But as soon as you get your feet in the door and start teaching, then start talking about what you're doing, not what you study. They don't really care. Everybody has a TEFL. Everybody within like, 100 feet of a school in Vietnam has some kind of teaching qualification. So to tell them like what I study versus what, it doesn't matter. It matters what you're doing in the classroom. So remember, do not say. Actions speak louder than words, guys. The next one is tell brief but personal anecdotes. So tell them stories about yourself. Tell them examples of what you did in classrooms. Don't tell them like what you studied again. Like you want to tell them personal stories so that they know like what's up and they know that you've been around the block, so to speak. Definitely helps a lot. And then here, this one I read, so I'm not sure, but I kind of do agree. Like, don't shy away from self-reflection. Like, self-reflect, talk about like things you did, and maybe even talk about mistakes you made, and be like, oh, well, I did try this, but it actually didn't work in the long run because X, Y, Z, and that shows that you're willing to grow. And that's kind of a general interview mentality you want to have. Is you don't want to be like, I'm the best, but you want to be like, hey, listen, like I made some mistakes, but I've grown from them, and I can do the same thing for you, and that's super useful. So make sure you're like talking about yourself and reflecting back and then selling yourself in the process. And one last thing is practice makes perfect. So you're going to be Skyping. Just like I talk to a camera, you're most likely going to be in a Skype interview unless you're already in the country. But most likely you'll be sitting in front of your computer. So dress semi-okay. Check if the dress code requires you to have a tie. Then you should wear a tie for the interview. I didn't for my job because it's business casual. But for my job in Taiwan, I did have to wear a tie every day, so I wore a tie to the interview. And another thing, make sure you're wearing like proper pants. Don't be in shorts or underwear, because if you forget something and you need to like, oh, excuse me for a minute and walk away, you don't want them to see like you're in your boxers or whatever. So wear something like a full, like, you don't need to wear the shoes and everything, but look decent from like, your neck to from your head to like your ankles. Look at least somewhat decent. So, and then practice, guys. Talk to a camera. Practice give a list of questions to your friends or family, and then like run through them and see how comfortable you are with them. It just makes the whole process easier. But once you do it the first time, at least for me, like I never needed to practice. I was just like, all right, let's go. And like I'll have a list. I'll be like, oh, well, here's what I read about your company. What can you say about this and this? Be comfortable, be confident. That's what people want. Confidence, it's like with dating, it's with everything. Like confidence is key. Be confident, know what you're doing, and you're gonna be fine. So yeah, that's it, guys. There's some interview questions for you. I hope you learned something new, and now go out there and practice and get that job you want and come abroad, hang out with me, come to Hanoi. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you haven't, check out the other videos in the playlist about how to get a job, about where to teach, about getting some inspiration. If you kind of want something else, look at the vlogs. I've been all over the place, so you can check out my vlogs about Hanoi if you're curious about Vietnam, or you can look at the specific playlists, like when we went to Da Nang and Hoi An. And you can look at the travel videos, and stay tuned. We're traveling in a few weeks for our Christmas holiday, so stay tuned for that. There's a lot going on. And anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.